Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Hello, it's Saturday morning, a beautiful day here in the Buckeye State. Looking out my window and it's sun shining, crisp Saturday morning, November 6th. Thank you for joining the show. We are the Johnny Cleveland podcast. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, on TikTok at the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Also, you can email the show at jclevelandpod@gmail.com. Send me your questions, your thoughts. Boy, there has been a lot going on here in Cleveland sports, especially those Cleveland Browns and one, that's right, OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., who got his freedom from the Cleveland Browns this week. Lots to say about OBJ. And we'll get into that here momentarily. But I hope you're enjoying your start to your weekend wherever you are, and love having you tune into the show. We have a fun time. I have a fun time trying to entertain. I'm going to be going later on this afternoon. Beautiful wife Laura and I are going to be doing some trail hiking out there in Yellow Springs, Ohio. So as we're in the Columbus, Ohio area, and you go west of town as you approach the Dayton, Ohio area, the Dayton Flyers, there are some hiking trails. Can't remember the name of the state park out there, but we're going to head out that direction this afternoon. Beautiful wife Laura there on the, let's see, can I get my finger there? If you're watching on the video player, or if you're watching on the Zoom call here, you can also listen to us right now. We're on Anchor on our platform. We'll be getting this out, this podcast out after we record this, and looking forward to doing that as well. Just had a great time visiting. I was on another podcast show called the Outdated and Uneducated Podcast, their NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. Great guy that lives out there up in Wisconsin, and he and I had a chat this morning. That show will be coming to you tomorrow. He'll be releasing that on Twitter, on his YouTube channel. So please tune into that. He had asked, we covered all things Cleveland Browns, especially with the news of one OBJ being freed by the Cleveland Browns. Had a lot to talk about there. So had a lot of fun. Appreciate his time and his efforts. So lots of things going on in the world of sports. Obviously, the world of sports is centered in Cleveland, Ohio, and the latest and greatest news with Beckham. Just crazy what has happened over the last week. You know, a lot of folks have, you know, a lot of people either loved or hated OBJ coming into this whole mix. You know, he has a history of being a very big personality, a lot of energy, a very big character guy, does a lot of things to draw attention to himself. A lot of folks who have supported Beckham Jr. over the years have said he's a really good teammate. When he's in the locker room, he does a lot with outside in the community and all these things. And people that have met him said he's a very nice guy. I'm sure that's all probably true. I've never met the guy, but you know, I'm just speaking on the basis of what has transpired over the last week. Being an educator too, in my background, it's always fun to analyze people, right? Do you like to analyze people? I do. It's a good trait of mine. And just craziness, you know, Beckham Jr. comes off this major knee surgery last year when he got hurt in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals a little bit over a year ago. Recovered from that injury. We weren't sure when he was we thought he would start at the beginning of the season. Finally got him back in, I think, week 3 against the Chicago Bears. And he had a couple, you know, decent games, nothing, you know, spectacular, but, you know, he was contributing. Last week, then, in the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Browns quarterback, Baker Mayfield, who is still struggling with a major shoulder injury to his left shoulder, not his throwing arm, but he demands that he wants to be back in and play. The Browns struggle on offense. The Browns only throw the ball to Beckham Jr. twice in the game. He caught a 6-yard pass, I believe, at the beginning of the game. And then it wasn't until the very end of the game that when the Browns were driving on one of their last possessions, Baker Mayfield, again, the ball was a little bit off, and Beckham Jr. kind of goes up in the air, kind of haphazardly, and doesn't come down with the ball. A lot of people were critical of that. And really, honestly, over the last few weeks, if you watch Beckham Jr. on the sidelines, or if like I've been at the games personally, have watched him, he wouldn't be part of the huddles. He would oftentimes seem a little bit off kilter, like he has all the last couple of years. He's not always been lined up properly, and so all that came to a boil this week because. Now, keep in mind that Odell Beckham Jr. is 29 years old. I think he just had a birthday. He's an adult. He makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. And yet, his father, it's great. I'm glad you have a dad, gets on social media and puts out this video or retweets this video of all these throws that were missed by Baker Mayfield to Odell Beckham Jr., and basically tells everyone in this Instagram or Twitter or whatever message on social media that his son needs to be freed. Also, at the same time, other important personalities in the world of sports, like a one LeBron James, a former Cleveland Cavalier, and yes, did help provide the Cleveland Cavaliers a championship back in 2016, got on and also on his Twitter page and said to free OBJ. This all happened on Tuesday at the day that the NFL had their trading deadline. So all these things are happening like right away to put pressure on the Cleveland Browns football organization to let OBJ walk, let him get off the team, because obviously he's sad and he doesn't know how to handle losses or how to be really, to be quite honest, a good teammate. Now, I know that a lot of people have talked about, and his teammates have said he was a great teammate and we're really going to miss him and, the best of luck to him. That's fine. And I've never met OBJ. So I'm just going off of what I see by all sides. And I think the biggest problem with all of this, starts with his dad. And this starts with the fact that OBJ didn't say anything to anybody after all this stuff came out. He's 29 years old, OBJ. He's an adult. Like I said, he makes millions of dollars. For all this to go down and to put pressure on the Cleveland Browns organization is just another chapter in the OBJ saga. This guy started his career with the New York Giants, started in New York. And when he got traded to the Browns, there was a lot of talk then about, how he would handle that. Now, his best bud, Jarvis Landry, was also in Cleveland already. They both played together at LSU, and they've been lifetime, it seems like they've been friends for a long, long time. So there was this hope that, the two of them could coexist and be partners and help the Browns get to a Super Bowl. Well, obviously that's not going to happen now. But it's a real problem when you have, your dad getting on social media and making claims to put pressure on the employer that your son works for, while the son doesn't say anything and is a scared little kid, not a kid anymore, he's 29, just pretty stupid. I don't wish OBJ well. What he did was stupid and rude. And he's probably going to get, he's getting a pretty good deal. He was able to renegotiate his contract and probably will end up on a competitive team. Now they have these waiver wires that he has to go through. So there's been a lot of discussion in the last 2 days about where he would fall on the waiver wire. It kind of goes in order of, the worst teams. Like the Detroit Lions would have first dibs on OBJ in the way that the Browns renegotiated his contract. Would the Lions want to do that? I've listed enough to the great Chris Spielman, who's part of the Detroit Lions organization in the past when Spielman and Bruce Hooley had their podcast together. and he wouldn't want anything to do with OBJ. So he won't be a Lion. Now there's a few other teams like the Miami Dolphins, the Las Vegas Raiders that have been thrown into the mix. But if he goes through waivers and he doesn't sign with anybody, then he's free to be a free agent and sign with anybody. So then the question is, who does he go to? Does he go to the New England Patriots? Do the Kansas City Chiefs, who are crumbling as well as a team, do they try to seek OBJ's services? Do the teams in the AFC North, the Steelers, the Ravens, or the Bengals consider taking OBJ? All of this is just a complete disaster. It's a mess, and it's pretty pissy how he went about doing this. It's very obnoxious, rude, and honestly, I don't have any sort of like parting like, hey, have a great career. No, he messed with this team's mental state, and you've already got a quarterback, Baker Mayfield, who's an emotional roller coaster all the time. I mean, that scene at the end of the game before the Browns lost, but prior to knowing that, when Baker Mayfield scrambles to the sideline, gets knocked out of bounds, and races to his feet in an emotional, throwing his fist into the air, and he almost threw his fist in, if you watch the replay, Odell Beckham Jr., as Beckham Jr. is walking back the sidelines. No body language, no high fives. Like Baker Mayfield almost hit him in the face. So whatever has happened within that locker room over the last, few months has gone south quickly. And it's really sad. Now, Baker Mayfield's not going to change himself, and he's going to continue to be this emotional roller coaster. I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that like he did last year when OBJ went down, that Baker Mayfield will see the parting of the Red Sea. The field will open up. Things will slow down for him in his mind. He'll make quick decisions and get the ball to the open receivers like Donovan Peoples-Jones, like Hollywood Higgins, like his tight ends, Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, little flare passes to Dimitri Felton. Kareem Hunt's out for a while, but how about Nick Chubb? Get him a few more passes in the passing game. That would be great. And I think that's going to happen again. The Browns are 4-4. It's not the end of the world. Now, it's not even the end of the world if, let's say, they lose tomorrow to the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, that would be awful, but there would still be time to recover. But it would be a slim chance for the Browns to recover and get to the postseason. I said in the podcast earlier today when I was on the NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on their podcast that, Kevin Stefanski is going through this sophomore slump, second guessing himself. He's done all these fourth down plays, which is blowing me away. It's driving me nuts because the Browns have not been very successful in these fourth down attempts, even though the analytics say that the Browns should be going for them. But regardless of that, Stefanski, remember last year when all you heard all season long, and I know the Browns are winning, and winning solves a lot of issues. But every week you would hear, win the week. The Browns need to win the week. Okay? Have you heard that a lot? I haven't. All I'm hearing this week is this is a crisis. This is a serious game. This is a must win. We got to have this. This is, the biggest game of our careers. And they're putting a lot of pressure on that concept. The Browns and Stefanski, I hope, are maybe in the background are telling the players, you got to win the week. You can't get away from that message. It's what got Stefanski to get the buy-in from his players. And right now, Stefanski is kind of just going through a lot of second guessing. I don't like the idea that he keeps putting it back on him and saying, I got to be better. No, coach, your players have got to get better. You're doing a decent job of calling games. The players aren't delivering. That is on you somewhat. But at certain points, the players, and I think, honestly, you see, like I just mentioned a second ago, the body language between a player like OBJ and Baker Mayfield, that's on the coach to get everybody to buy in. but you're also working with a diva like OBJ. I think that the Browns are going to be a lot more able to focus like they did last season with someone like OBJ out of the locker room. I don't wish OBJ well. I mean, he really messed up, screwed over the Browns with this last week. His father and contributed, and he's as much to blame for allowing his father to go on this merrily way. Now, speaking of another character out there who I've, over the years, many of you who follow me know that I love a LeBron James and what he did for the Cleveland Cavaliers, what he did for the city of Cleveland, for anybody who's a Cleveland sports fan to help bring us a championship back in 2016. But I'll be quite honest, over the years, and I've watched not OBJ, see, I'm getting them mixed up. They're one and the same, OBJ, LeBron James. They might as well be, right? LeBron James is a megastar. We know that. He's bigger than life. And so when he got on there and said free OBJ on his Twitter account, what an idiot. What a moron. What a doofus. And then I get people that say, well, come on, man. He got Cleveland a championship. You got to give him respect. You got to give him props. You got to give him a pass. He can do whatever he wants. Okay. No. You can't give him a pass. It was a calculated move on LeBron's part. He knew what that would do on top of everything else that was going on from his dad. I wrote about that on the Cleveland Sports Talk as well. I also write for the Dog Pound Daily and King James Gospel, so check those things out. We're going to talk about the Cavaliers, those hot Cavaliers, in a moment. I just wrote an article about 3 things to look forward to on the Cleveland Cavaliers on our King James Gospel. But in my article I wrote about on Cleveland Sports Talk about LeBron, I basically told LeBron to stay out of, just stick to basketball. I know some people have made fun of that idea because he was told that by outside resource, media sources a few years ago about some political things, and somebody said stick to basketball or dribbling. And the idea here, though, is, LeBron has no business getting involved with OBJ, and it was a calculated move. And it's very defining to me that LeBron James, as much as I appreciated the fact that he helped Cleveland win a championship, it really does go, you want your sports heroes. You want these guys like Kyrie Irving, who hit the game-winning shot, and LeBron James, who helped, all these years to bring Cleveland back to prosperity. You want these guys to be good guys. Like, honestly, you go about your daily life. You want your superheroes, your sports heroes, to be legitimately good guys, good hearts, good souls. And quite honest, I mean, we can discuss this and we can have our own opinions, but I mean, would you, whoever you are, if you're listening to this podcast, would you, in that position or in your own position, put out a message on social media, let's say fictitiously that you have social media, if you don't, and do that to drive home a point, a calculated move to get your buddy, your other superstar athlete who's you buddy up with and you meet at a club in California or Vegas, to get him out of a job with his current employer because he knows he can help in that way. I mean, would you do that? I mean, I know we're talking about hey, we're fans. We enjoy the game. We enjoy watching these games and talking about the competitiveness and who's going to win this and what are they going to do here. But it is really disheartening. And maybe that's because I'm getting older and I'm not a young kid anymore. But the idea, all these things, you wish for and you watch these athletes. And, when I was a kid, I was 15 years old, 20 years old, and you'd see these superstars playing and oh my gosh, I ran into Michael Jordan. I tell people this story. I ran into Michael Jordan at the airport in Chicago, got his autograph. He was just a young kid coming out of North Carolina, like the second year of playing. And now, Michael Jordan is the biggest athlete in the world, along with Tiger Woods and LeBron James. But you want these guys to be good guys, be good character guys. And people say, oh, they're really good character guys. I don't find good character in what LeBron James did one bit. And you guys who follow LeBron and are younger and follow his, and talk about giving this guy a pass. Well, he can do whatever he wants. He's LeBron James. He brought a championship to Cleveland. I don't care. Kyrie Irving. I mean, the guy thinks that the world's flat. Somebody's going to knock on his head. He won't, he has all these bizarre ideas and thoughts. Yes, he hit the game-winning shot, and I'm thankful that he was on my team, but he's a real idiot. I mean, these guys, they're not, I'm sure maybe if I had a conversation with him, maybe my thought process would change. But I would tell LeBron James, if I ever had a conversation, what the hell are you doing? Why you do that? What gives you the right to go about doing that? He knows he has the platform. He knows he has this platform. He can do that. He knows he's going to get a lot of people pissed off, a lot of people that are happy about that in OBJ's corner. I just thought it was stupid. And it was a poor move, poor judgment call on LeBron's view. And the problem is that these guys, these star athletes, especially the ones like LeBron, who've been in the business for a long time, their lives get skewed. Their vision, their idea, their perception on the world around them is skewed. Not always their fault. They live a life of luxury. They live a life that they don't have any needs. We all know we all have needs. On the outside, though, they don't have needs, right? They're superstars. Nothing's wrong with these people. There's a lot wrong with what LeBron James did this past week. And I'm calling him out on it. You don't like it? You can give me every excuse in the book. I'm right. So you want to argue that take? I welcome you on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Or if you have your own podcast, you can share your thoughts there. But I hope you respect mine. You don't have to agree with it. But I'm right in this case. LeBron James did something that he should not have done. And he owes the Cleveland Browns an apology. Is he going to call Kevin Stefanski up this week and say, hey, coach, sorry about putting out that tweet. Hey, can I come play for you and play tight end for the Cleveland Browns? Remember when all that was going on, how people thought, oh, LeBron could play for the Cleveland Browns and be a tight end. He's not going to get any sort of invite to their upcoming training camps over at Berea, is he? Man, he owes the Cleveland Browns an apology. And I would tell LeBron James that. He might want to deck me, but I'm right and LeBron is wrong. So anyway, all right. Well, let's move on a little bit here. So the Browns do have this big game against the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow. What will happen? Who knows, right? The Browns have scored 40 points. They can score 10 points. The Browns have a wild and crazy quarterback back there in Baker Mayfield. He had a hell of a game a year ago against Cincinnati. That was the game that he threw 21 passes in a row. Can he get things turned around? Absolutely. I think without OBJ there in the middle of all this chaos, I think the Browns calm down. I think they go back to the run game, to Nick Chubb, Stefanski. If he's what I think he is, I think he'll understand that, understand how to game plan for this game. It's going to be a good game though, folks. And it could go either way. Browns could get blown out. They could be in a slugfest that goes like it did last year, where every team's scoring lots of points. They have a history, these teams, of scoring a lot of points. The Browns have won 5 of their last 6 games against the Cincinnati Bengals. But a lot of these games have been in the 30s, 20s, high. There's a lot of points being scored. So based on that pattern, I would say, yeah, there'll probably be a lot of points scored. We shall see. Not the world coming to an end if they lose, but man, aren't we going to be disappointed? I will be. The Browns have a very talented team. The Cincinnati Bengals are up and coming. They actually have a better record than the Browns do right now. And if they win this game, they have a 2-game advantage over the Browns. They would be 6-3, and the Browns would be 4-5. And the Bengals would be going on their bye and resting. Bengals are pretty good this year. Lamar Chase, wow. Kid out of LSU, catching everything. His former buddy, Joe Burrow, throwing him darts. They have a very good team, the Bengals. And they were close to winning both those games a year ago. Do you remember those games? I remember them. and the Bengals are very close. Would not surprise me if we get blown out of the water. The Browns do again. Our secondary has got to come to play. They've got to. Joe Woods, the defensive secondary or defensive coach, needs to put some pressure using his corners, using his linebackers to blitz, get some pressure on Joe Burrow, and take some chances. Let these guys play these guys one-on-one. Don't go into this zone stuff and allow these guys to catch 20, 30 yards passes down the field at will. I mean, we'll see what happens. Now, the thing is that the Jets beat the Bengals. The Jets, that's right, the New York Jets beat the Bengals a week ago, 34-31. Bit of a surprise. Do the Bengals, are they pissed off about that loss and come back with vengeance? How will the Browns' mental state be with all of these shenanigans with OBJ? Does Jarvis Landry play tomorrow? You know, that fumble he had was a backbreaker, not bone breaker, backbreaker. 20-yard line, 3 minutes to go in the game. I think if he catches that ball, who knows what happens, but the Browns were in a serious position to take the lead late in that game and might have been able to secure the win. They didn't. You know, I could also say at the beginning of that game too, a lot of people were talking too about Baker Mayfield and Austin Hooper and criticizing Austin Hooper at the beginning of the game for dropping an apparent touchdown pass. I watched that game live. I was there. Austin Hooper was wide open in the field. There wasn't a player around him for 10 yards. Baker Mayfield's pass was crap. He threw the ball high like he does a lot. And I'm a Baker fan, but he has a tendency to throw the ball high. You know it. I know it. So when you see the replay of Austin Hooper missing that catch, yeah, he could have caught it, but I don't think the camera angles, you can't appreciate how high he had to go up to try to get that ball. He was like 5 feet off the ground to try to reach it his full extension to get that ball. It was a crappy pass. If he hits Hooper in the numbers or even anywhere near his helmet, it's an easy walk-in touchdown. Like I said, there was nobody within 10 yards of him. It should have been a touchdown and would have been the difference in that game. So we shall see. I look for the Browns to win in a high-scoring affair. I'm going to give the Browns 31, the Cincinnati Bengals 28. Browns winning on a field goal by Chase McLaughlin, who's had a hell of a season. In Chase, we trust, like we used to do with Phil Dawson. In Phil, we trust. In Chase, we trust. Go Browns. All right. A couple things before we wrap up today. I hope whatever you're doing today, especially if you're in the Buckeye State, it's beautiful. I think I mentioned this before, but it's going to be in the mid-50s today. It's beautiful sunshine. Like I said, I'm going hiking with my beautiful wife, Laura, and looking forward to that. So how about them Cleveland Cavaliers? Wow. 6 wins, 4 losses. Now, a year ago, the Cavaliers were also 5-4. Like they were this year. Before then, they won again. They beat the Toronto Raptors last night. But folks, there is a different feeling, a different vibe. You can just sense it when you watch these Cavaliers teams this year. They had to go on the road for a huge road trip, and that they're still finishing up right now, where they had like 7 of 8 games on the road, and they've fared very well. I'm saying the game last night was the best win for the Cavaliers all season and could be another stepping stone for this team getting back to the promised land into the playoffs. This young core of players has been building, but the real difference maker is Evan Mobley, this kid that they picked up from USC. They drafted him number 3. He is the real deal. 7 foot, mobile, footwork, impeccable. Defensively, can get from the baseline up to the key just tremendously. The way that he guards players, the way that he can drop and defend and alter shots is awesome. As a former coach, as a coach currently, middle school, high school kids, it really is impeccable what he's doing. And he is really changing how other teams are going to have to go about trying to beat the Cavaliers. You add in somebody like Jarrett Allen, the other 7-footer, who the Cavs have locked up for several years. And then this other 7-footer, Laurie McCarkin, who has been out with COVID protocol. But I keep saying the Browns, the Cavaliers, the Cavs keep this 3 guys in their starting rotation. They're 7 foot, and they're going with Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. And it's working, folks. It is working. The Cavaliers are 6-4. That win that they had last night, I got to tell you, I watched that game from the beginning to the end. They trailed. The Cavaliers never were in the lead in that game until the last 4 or 5 seconds of the game. And every time that the Toronto Raptors got a little bit more of a cushion, they got an 8-point lead, a 9-point lead, even I think 12-point, 13-point lead. The Cavaliers inched their way back. They were just playing so hard, aggressively, defensively, going after 50-50 balls. It was really impressive to see. These guys are young. I love to see my man Dean Wade, former K-Stater, in there. He was in the starting lineup as well. Love this guy. No, he is undervalued big time by fans who follow the team. I've had the privilege of watching him over the years playing K-State, and even when he was younger. I've said this before. When my kids were younger and we'd have these events in the summer, his team, his St. John High Schools, those boys' teams were always solid. Fundamentally, they were taught exceptionally well. And Dean Wade he reminds me a lot of my daughter, Mariah. Mariah used to play ball for the University of Buffalo. They just have a knack of understanding the game. They don't always fill up a stat sheet, but boy, do they make their teams better when they're out there. Just the defensive understanding, the way to shift, the way to move, to alter shots, to confuse their opponent, to be scrappy, just is really tremendous. Really, really tremendous. So those are things that are happening right now that the Cavaliers haven't always had. And now you throw in Evan Mobley again, who's altering shots and just doing things that are really changing the trajectory of this organization. And they're learning how to win. That's the best part of this. I mean, the Cavaliers, how many times last season, the Cavs ended up 22 wins, 50 losses. They started the season off, going 10-11. So they went from 10-11 last year to 22-50. 22-50. They lost a series of 10 games in a row, 11 games in a row. And most of those games that were lost in the second half where they just ran out of steam. They didn't know how to hold a lead. That's changing, folks. Big time. The game again against Toronto last night, they kept coming back. The fourth quarter, they were still trailing 7 or 8 points going into that quarter. And they kept chipping away. Jarrett Allen what I love about Jarrett Allen is he's not making every damn shot, but he's putting the time and effort into creating the shots. And good things happen when you start getting aggressive in that paint. His little bunny, he'd miss it 2 or 3 times, but then one of his teammates would gobble up the rebound and put it back in, or it didn't always happen that way. But those things are what you got to have. Those second chance points, those third chance points, that aggressiveness. Toronto coming into that game, they had won 5 games in a row. They were 6-3, very young team too, but a good team. Fred VanVleet, former Wichita State Shocker on that team. Very good player. They have very good players amongst that Toronto Raptors team. So this was a great win for the Cavaliers organization. Another stepping stone. Cavs got one more game. I think they play, is it the New York Knicks or the New Jersey Nets or the Brooklyn Nets, I believe, tomorrow. And then they finally come home. They get to have, 7 out of the next 8 games or 8 of the next 9 games finally at home. So fans of the Cavaliers can come down there to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and watch our young Cavaliers continue to get better. It's been fun, folks. Man, I tell you, watching Cavaliers games is starting to become fun. On the shadow of the late or former LeBron James, it's a little interesting because, I'm pretty bitter about LeBron James right now. My view of LeBron has really changed and shifted as years have passed, as he's not been a Cavalier. And to see the youth and the aggressiveness and the desire to play together and win as a team and bond as a group is really awesome to see. You know, even when LeBron was bringing these championships to Cleveland, it was a bunch of veterans and free agents who were come together, and yeah, they all worked together and they had some really good teams. But I love this new core group of guys because they've been in the trenches. They've lost and they're learning how to win. Darius Garland, the point guard for the Cavaliers, is really starting to take ownership, really starting to distribute the ball, having a free agent like Ricky Rubio in there, who is a veteran, who's teaching these younger players more about how to make assists and bring their teammates into the mix and make them better. Those are all really phenomenal things. It really is exciting. If I've coached basketball over the years, and you can just see it when you're watching these games, how they're getting better. And if you're a Cavs fan, you've got a lot to be excited about. It's funny. I wrote this article on King James Gospel, and I made a comment about fans eyeing a championship. Some of that was, because, we're excited. It's funny though, because some fans take that too literally when they read material, and they're like thinking that when I write that I'm out of context, or that I'm not I'm putting down Cavalier fans who watch the game, and I'm not doing that at all. But social media is a really interesting world. I've come to learn that, especially over the last 6 months. Anyway, Cavaliers are doing well. The Cleveland Guardians now. Sad news there at Progressive Field. They finally took down the big script Indians off the Jacobs Field. Oh, what is now Progressive Field. You remember when it was called the Jake? I still call it the Jake. You should call it the Jake, because that's what it was. It was Jacobs Field. That's what it is. It's Jacobs Field. Now you get all these, businesses that own everything. I mean, I forget the name. They have a new name for the, somebody knows the new name for the stadium here in Columbus, for the Columbus Crew, the professional soccer team. They've got some name of some insurance company that I've never heard of, and you probably never have heard of, on the outside of the stadium. And it's just, to me, all the sponsorships and the money that just goes into all this stuff, it's just sad. I miss the olden days of when you could call a stadium by the owner's name, like the Jacobs. That's how it was called, Jacobs Field. That's how we got the nickname the Jake. And now we got to give all these names to all these stadiums. It's kind of sad. Oh, well. So the Indians now, the Guardians, will have a new thing that'll say the Guardians at the old Jake. It'll be a change. I was glad to see that they picked up Jose Ramirez. The Guardians picked up Jose Ramirez extension. So he hopefully will stay in Cleveland for a long while. He's obviously a fan favorite of many, and will be fun to watch. And hopefully the Guardians will be back. They were very good over the last several years, trying to get back to the playoffs. And I think that that's a real distinct possibility this upcoming season. We'll talk a lot more about the Guardians as that next season approaches. Hey, folks, I hope you get outside and go do something fun today. It is Saturday. Enjoy the sunny skies. If you're here in the Buckeye State, enjoy the sunny skies wherever you're at. And if the skies aren't sunny, you can make them sunny, right? It's all in the mindset. All right, folks, have a great, great morning. Go Browns, go Cavaliers, go Guardians, and remember to keep smiling. Take care.